Bonjour, salut, hello everyone. This is a quick revision blast of three verbs avoir, être, and aller. These are the absolute bedrock foundation for basically the majority of the reading and listening exam. Really everything falls back onto these. As I've said to you before, reading and listening, we're working in two ways. One side, do you know the vocab? Do you know the word? Do you not know the word? And if you don't know the word, there's not much else you can do. However, another element is the grammar and all of those things that are associated with it. And this is very much about that grammar aspect, because sometimes even if you know the word, so if it was le chômage or les SDF or bâtiment for building or the favourite word chaussure for shoes, what the examiner will do is they'll play around with the vocab and they'll use avoir, être and aller, the main use of the verbs, but it's probably going to be these three to twist and change the meaning of what's been said. Everything here is really, really condensed, and I'm just focusing on the most important stuff. But even then, there's still a lot of things here. So please don't be overwhelmed. Please don't be, oh my God, what is he spurting out at me? It's important stuff. Do as best as you can. Okay. So we're just going to begin with the present tense, because actually the present tense tends to be the parts that appear again and again. What I'm also throwing in at you here, as you can probably see, are some negatives as well, because the negatives play a big role in the reading and listening exam. So I've got the three verbs along the top, and the first little table is just dealing with them in the je form. So we've got j'ai, je suis, je vais. I have, I am, and then I am going. But it can also mean I go as well. So remember that there are two possibilities. In fact, all of those could mean two things. J'ai, I have, but also I am having, as in like I'm having my tea, what you're doing. Je suis, I am, but then it could also be I am being, as in like I am being stupid, or I am being a bit absent-minded or whatever, a bit forgetful. So remember that there are two possibilities there. Not really common with j'ai and je suis, but with je vais, the I am going one is really, really important. What we've then got underneath is I've just put these into negatives so you can start to get a feel, because actually it's unlikely, or it's quite rare, that you're just going to get them offered up to you as they are. So je n'ai pas de, I don't have, and the de is like any or something, so je n'ai pas de stylo, I haven't got any pens, or I haven't got a pen. Je n'ai pas de, je ne suis pas, so I am not or I'm not, and then je ne vais pas. So I don't go, but then it could also be I am not going. So talking about the future, je ne vais pas. Next one, je n'ai jamais. So I never have. I never have. This sometimes comes up, as we'll see in a second, with other tenses. So just be prepared for that. Je ne suis jamais. I am never. And then je ne vais jamais. So again, I never go, which is probably the more likely one with never. But I am never going, you could say that as well. I'm never going there again, or something like that. Je ne vais jamais. This one I've only done a single because the other two don't really make sense, but this comes up a lot. Je n'ai rien. Rien means nothing, so je n'ai rien. I did put je ne suis rien, but it sounded a bit depressing to say I am nothing. But je n'ai rien, if you've got nothing. That rien comes up loads and loads and loads. Then the French exam obviously loves an absolute killer phrase to just finish you off. This is a really tricky one. So, que, Q-U-E, such a common word, comes up with loads and loads and loads of things all over the place. However, if it's got the ne with it, this means only. So, je n'ai que means I only have. Je ne suis que, I am only. And then je ne vais que is I only go, or I am only going. So that's a really, really tricky one, and I can guarantee there will be a ne que, at least one, if not more, in the reading and the listening. They will be there, ne and que. Really, really, really tricky little phrases. I've put the QU in brackets because the QU often runs into the next words. You might lose it and not consider that it's connected to the other thing. So that's about precision and detail, particularly in the reading. Much more difficult in the listening, but in the reading exam and the translation, really focusing and thinking, oh, do you know what? Actually, there's a ne there. So ne and que together only, whatever that thing is. So it might be je ne mange que. I only eat, or je n'écoute que, I only listen to. So just be prepared for that, okay? Underneath this then, I've put these just in, again, I'm trying not to put everything in there. We've got the verbs now, but I've done them in the il, elle, and on. Now, the tricky one here is that this is just a, as in he has is il a, and elle a, and on a. And that a can get lost, even in reading, that a can get swallowed up and lost because you're looking for other things and it can be easily missed out. So just keep an eye on that. In être, we've got il, elle, and on est, so like he is. This can be variable in the, thinking about the listening. This can be variable in the sound because if that T on the EST is followed by a vowel, you're then going to change not just the T, but actually the pronunciation of the word too. So if you wanted to say he is stupid, you would say il est stupide. Il est stupide. If you wanted to say he is selfish, il est égoïste. Il est égoïste. So you're not saying il est égoïste, il est égoïste. So il est stupide, il est égoïste. Really, really tricky one. Really tricky one. And we're going to come to that later actually, so I'll leave that there. I'm going to do that at the end. Moving to nous. So nous is obviously going to come up. Nous avons. I say, remember the person in Hartlepool going, yeah, what have you got? Have you got £10? That have, that really hard. You've dropped the H on have and you've got this have coming through. Same with avoir actually, the infinitive. The have, that really hard accent, with an English accent with dropping the H. So nous avons for we have. Nous sommes for we are. That's going to come up in nous sommes allés, but it's a separate thing. Don't worry too much about that. And then people get this really trickily muddled up with avoir. Nous allons. Nous allons. So actually just taking the al from aller and the av from avoir to put the new form together, but just keep an eye on those. Then a biggie that comes up quite frequently is the bottom one here for they. This is very, very often not with the il and the l, it's with another person. So it might be parents, it might be neighbours, les voisins, it could be anything. And you just get this ONT, SONT, or VONT completely isolated by itself, and that can get lost completely. Other tricky thing here is that they all look and sound very similar. So we've got for avoir, on, for être, sont, and then aller, vont. Oh, squeaky voice, vont. So on, sont, vont. And they're really, really close. The other thing that will happen as well, we've got that T on the end. That T can sometimes be sounded or sometimes not. So when it's not sounded, which is probably a lot of the time, it's really, as I've used this phrase, it gets swallowed up. The sound just gets lost. This ils ont visité. It's really, really easy to get lost. If there's a word with a vowel following it, fine, because you're going to get ils ont, ils sont, ils vont. And that's okay because you can hear it, but you're probably most of the time not going to be able to pick that up. Okay? Right, moving on quickly. I know this is quite fast. There's a lot of stuff to take in here, a bit like the Theme 2 vocab. In making other tenses, these verbs often form the basis of a lot of things. What I'm not going to talk about here is être, but as we know, if we're using aller in the perfect tense, in the past tense, je suis allé, literally I am gone, or nous sommes allés, we are gone, to talk about I went, or we went. I'm not going to do that here because it's too complicated and it's not what we need right now, but just keep that in mind. Avoir is your main verb for creating the perfect tense for the majority of verbs that you would encounter. And aller is going to be your main verb to create the near future, to say what you are going to do fairly soon. So I've done avoir here in the perfect tense. So j'ai visité, I visited, or I have visited. And then I've put them in two negatives underneath here as well. So je n'ai pas visité, I haven't visited. And then je n'ai jamais visité, I have never visited. Over to the other side, still using visiter, this is aller. So je vais visiter, I am going to visit. Je ne vais pas visiter, I am not going to visit. And je ne vais jamais visiter, I am never going to visit. So you need to have an awareness that, yes, you've seen that little AI with the J, or you've seen the VAIS, or you've heard it. What else is around it either side? Is there a visiter? And if you've heard je vais visiter, it's obviously in the future tense. If you've heard it with the j'ai visité, it's in the past. The other thing here, and I say this to you a lot, it's that extra stuff to listen out for. The time markers are going to give you a really big indication of when this thing took place. Dans le passé, hier, all those things. Dans le futur, à l'avenir, demain. You need to be having a quick practice of the time markers as well, because they're going to help you work out when the time frame is too. Right, moving on then. So these are these three verbs. What I've done is I've just put them into 4 different tenses. So the first row, we've got them technically in the imperfect tense. We don't need to think about that now. It's the past tense, basically. So j'avais is I had. J'avais. J'étais, we know this a similar structure here from c'était. I was, or it could be I used to be. So quand j'étais petit, so like when I used to be young or when I was young. And I'm not going to bother about aller because I don't think we need it. Near future tense, je vais avoir, I am going to have. Je vais être, I am going to be. So you could use that in terms of jobs. Je vais être prof, je vais être médecin. You could do it with like feelings. Je vais être heureux, je vais être triste. And then the last one, je vais aller. I am going to go. Je vais aller en vacances. Je vais aller aux États-Unis and things like that. Now moving to the will future. So j'aurai, I will have. Je serai, I will be. J'irai, I will go. Then we've got sound exactly the same. J'aurai, again, I would have with that S on the end. Je serai, I would be. Again, S on the end. And j'irai, I would go. And guess what? There's another S on the end there too. So I would maybe go back and listen to those just again and again, just to get them in your ears. Now, looking at something very specific here, this is c'est, or set, it might be sometimes. And this is from être. As you know, this is a classic little early year 7 phrase, c'est. J'adore le français parce que c'est très intéressant, or whatever. So c'est, meaning it is in the present tense. Now, the point I made earlier on about the est and the vowel, if it follows by a vowel, it's going to change the way that it sounds. So actually, in the example I just did there, j'adore le français parce que c'est très intéressant. Because I've used the très, I'm keeping it as a c'est sound. However, if I left out the très and just went with intéressant, I would say j'adore le français car c'est intéressant. C'est intéressant. So you need really, really to listen out for that. Past tense, you know this really well. C'était. This doesn't, we've not practiced this much, but this comes up quite a lot actually. Ça va être. It is going to be. If you got rid of the être, ça va, again, year 7, you say to someone, ça va, how are you? Ça va. And it actually means, how is it going? How's it going? Is it going? Ça va? Oui, ça va bien. It's going well, it's fine. So ça va être, it is going to be. And then we know this, ce sera, really, really well. It will be. Sometimes you'll get ce serait, talking about what it would be in the conditional, if obviously other things have to happen for that thing to take place. What I've given you here then is negatives too. So ce n'est pas, ce n'était pas, ça ne va pas être, ça ne va pas être, ce ne sera pas, ce ne sera pas, ce ne serait pas. Ce ne sera pas, ce ne serait pas. Because it's really important to have those negatives practiced as well. Okay, another quick one then. Moving on to il y a. Same concept here actually. So il y a is actually just a twist on avoir, really. So it's going to follow a very similar pattern to avoir. The only difference is we've got this little y stuck in there as well. So il y a, you know really well. Il y avait, there was or there were. The thing with il y a is actually, this is an important thing to say, there's no distinction between a singular or plural. So there is one pen or there are 10 pens. I would just say il y a un stylo, il y a 10 stylos. I wouldn't do a different verb. So il y a, il y avait. This doesn't come up much, but just throwing it in to, just in case. Il va y avoir, there is going to be, or there are going to be. And then, this is really common, il y aura, il y aura, there will be, or il y aurait, there would be. If nothing else, that aura, il y aura, is telling you that there's something in the future tense that will happen. Again, negatives here, so il n'y a pas, il n'y a pas, il n'y avait pas, il n'y avait pas. I've put in the used to be here as well, and actually for the other one, il y avait could be there used to be. Il y avait, talk about your town, il y avait, I can't think, il y avait une piscine, but it's closed down now. Il n'y va pas, il n'y va pas, il n'y va pas, il n'y aura pas, il n'y aura pas, and then il n'y aurait pas, il n'y aurait pas. Again, I would listen back to this, practice them, do a few minutes, go back, come back 2 hours later, come back the next day, and just get them in your brain. Okay, a couple of little things then. So this is a little thing on negatives. I've noticed that this comes up quite a lot, and it's the ne and the que, but it's actually combined with this word seul that actually can help you out. Because as I said earlier, the ne que is really, really difficult to pick up, particularly in listening. But this word seul, and actually a lot of you know this quite well, it means actually literally soul, as in the sole survivor of something. But it just means one or a single. So this first sentence, il n'y a qu'une seule, and if we did personne on the end, that is saying there's only a single person, there's only one person. Underneath, il n'y a qu'un seul homme, there's only one single man. There's only one single man or one man. And that seul is worth listening out for, because what it's doing is it's reducing down whatever the possibilities are to one single thing. And then the last little thing, just to keep your ears and eyes open, so ears obviously in the listening, eyes in the reading, the va and the allons and the vont. If you see these three words, I'm going to say with a 90% level of certainty, whatever that thing that's being described is suggesting what is going to happen in the future. So the va, the allons and the vont is the thing hasn't happened yet, but it is going to happen. And your question may be about, the sequence of things, or what do they want to do in the future? What have they already done? And if you hear or see a va, allons, or vont, that thing hasn't taken place yet. So really, really, really let your ears prick up and let your eyes pop out if you see those things. Okay? Merci beaucoup et bonne continuation.